Welcome to the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast by Venus O'Hara. I'm here to welcome you into the world of orgasmic living by hosting experts to discuss orgasmic topics such as nutrition, spirituality, personal development, sexuality, and much more. Here, we will offer lifestyle lessons that can help you lead a fulfilling, joyous, and orgasmic lifestyle. I'm your guide, Venus O'Hara. Welcome to episode 99 of the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast with Venus O'Hara. In this first quarter moon episode, we discuss intuition and energy healing. We speak with Dr. Mary Sanders, a medical intuitive and energy healer. I also review the book, The Spiritual Entrepreneur, by future podcast guest, Steve Nobel. The episode ends with a guided meditation with affirmations for intuition. But first, let me share with you my own journey with improving my intuition and tapping into my energy. It was so interesting to speak to Dr. Mary Sanders about energy healing and intuition and many more topics that we covered related to healing as well. It made me think about my own journey with intuition and energy. And I've actually stopped preparing my interview questions for the last few episodes actually, and I've been relying on my intuition more and more, and I found that it's been quite good, because sometimes if you make a list of questions, it doesn't always flow with the conversation. I think it's nice to have a question that kind of follows the direction of the conversation in general and just be intuitive. I do love Louis Theroux. He's a British documentary maker, and the questions he asks seem to be kind of very basic, but they are the ones that you'll be wanting to know if you are on your sofa at home and watching his documentary. So I do like to ask questions that seem obvious to me, or or things that I think a listener will want to know. So that's the technique that I've been using more and more. But in general, in my life, I have been learning to be more self-sufficient when it comes to my own personal counsel. And that has been coming through silence and generally intuition, and also observing how my body feels about things. I do find this to be very confusing though sometimes. One of my friends said intuition doesn't even always know why. I think sometimes with time and more information, the why can be apparent with time. But first, sometimes there are these feelings in your body, and you're like, oh, I don't know about this, but I don't know why. And sometimes we try to apply logic to intuition. I don't know about you, but I do a lot. And I found this happens a lot with my friendships, actually, throughout my growth, especially my spiritual growth. It comes to a time that in my life where I don't seem to gel with certain people or certain things, and I start to feel this resistance, or it's like repelling. It's like when you put the magnet the wrong side, it feels like, oh. And sometimes I'm thinking, but this person's been good to me, they're a good friend, and we've had great times in the past, but there's some reason why just seeing their name on my phone is causing this visceral reaction of, oh, I don't want to go there anymore. And that's something that happens to me more and more. And it makes me feel a little bit fake, actually, because I cannot fake my feelings. I'm quite bad at that. But there's nothing in terms of logic. I cannot explain why. But then over time, I start to understand why. And that's happened to me a few times now. And it all comes down to values as well. I mean, I've just recently kind of had a reshuffle with friends, because I've learned that some people are not on my page when it comes to discretion, or when it comes to being, how would I call it, healthy. Like I do find I don't kind of gel with people who are quite reckless and go out and drink and become quite irresponsible, because I'm, as the sober one, I feel like I have to be extra responsible, and that's not something I want to be doing really. It's always good to, help your friends in the time of need. But when it's something that they're provoking themselves, I find that very difficult to be around. So yeah, I've just had this experience lately of rejecting nosiness and the type of curiosity that doesn't come from a place of it doesn't come from a place of what? Just curious for things that seem to be coming from a place of nosiness and gossip. Yeah, that's something that I'm finding very difficult to vibe with lately. So yeah, and also complaining. I kind of don't vibe with people who complain a lot. And this is not what I'm trying to complain about. I'm not trying to complain in this monologue here, but I'm just simply observing some changes that I've noticed in my own body, that I put down to intuition and inner knowing. And I think this happens a lot when you are going through any type of growth. Sometimes the things that you that align now weren't the things that aligned, a while ago, and they might not be in the future. It's nice to kind of go in the same direction as friends and allies in your life, but that's not always going to be the case. So yeah, it's good to kind of tap into that inner knowing and know what's good for you and what's bad for you simply by observing how something feels in your body. Is it like excitement, or is it kind of dread? And we talked about this as well when we were speaking to Marley Rose Harris, who is the millionaire coach, and she talked about a full body yes and the hell yes. And that's something that I think that was the conversation that planted this seed in me now. So I'm really trying to observe that more and more and honor it more and more as time goes by, to the point where I am no longer preparing questions for my interview. I'm just really thinking, what do I want to know from this person? I do feel very, very grateful to have the opportunity to speak to so many experts that come on this podcast, and I've got so many more lined up for the next 3 months already. I'm so excited. Can't wait to share it with you. Anyway, let's get on with this episode and speak to today's guest. Dear listener, due to popular demand, I am so thrilled to be offering 60-minute Zoom sessions just for you. Imagine an hour talking to me, oh my God, about all of the topics that I am a specialist in. I can help you with sexual wellness consulting. That could involve your sexual wellness business or even your personal life if you need some sex coaching to spice up your life with your partner, or even your solo sex life. I can definitely help you with that. I'm also offering self-love mentoring, and I'll be testing out my materials for my forthcoming self-love retreat, and these sessions are getting some excellent feedback. I'm also offering Orgasmic Manifestation, the Sex Magic Guidance, which is the topic of my book, and it's something that I am also very passionate about. I'm having excellent results with. And also Life in Barcelona. If you want to visit Barcelona or live in Barcelona, I am your woman. I can provide you with lots of tips. And last but not least, if you need a personal shopper for your pleasure product purchases, PPPPP, I am your woman. So we can connect and I will show you the best products for your needs. So are you ready to take the next step? If so, secure your spot today by visiting my website, venusohara.org, or you can click on the link in the show notes below. Let's make this hour all about you and your orgasmic journey. Now it's time for this episode's interview. We'll be speaking with Dr. Mary Sanders, a medical intuitive and energy healer. Dr. Mary Sanders, welcome to the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast. It's a real pleasure to have you. For those who are unfamiliar with your work, could you tell us what you do?
Venus, first and foremost, I want to say thank you so much for having me as a guest. The honor is all mine, sincerely. And for those of you that are listening, I'm looking forward to connecting with you energetically and sharing space with you during this time. My name is Dr. Mary. I am a medical intuitive by training and also a seasoned chiropractor as well.
Wow. So what inspired you to follow this path?
That's a legitimate question. And quite honestly, listeners, I'm not going to lie to you. I knew at a very young age that I needed to have my hands on patients, on people, on bodies. That's what I was destined to do. And I knew this at the age of 3. And so I was born hearing impaired, and I was blessed with receiving information above and beyond the traditional 5 senses. So what I could not hear, I mean, obviously I could interact with my family. I knew that when they were speaking to me, that there was energy that they were wanting to exchange with me, but I couldn't necessarily make out the sounds and the words to put them into the context of what it is that they wanted to share. So I developed early on the ability to sense and feel energy. And so it came out of the necessity of survival. I obviously wanted to, sit in this exchange and reciprocation of energy with my family members. So that's how I developed my senses early on as a hearing impaired child at the age of 3.
Wow. So how come what inspired you to follow this path professionally?
Mm. So let's see. Couple of things really inspired me to go down the first path of becoming a chiropractor. And to make a long story short, I knew, like I said, that I needed to have my hands on bodies. And so I thought that I wanted to go into the field of physical therapy. And at that time, so this would have been, wow, goodness, a little over 30 years ago. And that's when the doctoral program was coming online for physical therapists. And there weren't many schools, and they were narrowing down their application process. And so I really had to kind of scrutinize if this really was my life path. And I had been interning in a hospital. It was a burn unit, it was not a wellness type environment. And so I knew in my heart that I wanted to work with people to experiencing health and vitality and live a thriving life. And that's what guided me into the path of chiropractic. So
Mhm.
I went and I did mainstreamed my school and my undergraduate degree in chemistry and zoology. And 3 days after my graduation, I was sitting in chiropractic school. So it was a really fast turnaround. But when I entered into my school, surrounded by like-minded people, all of a sudden I was surrounded with people that were talking about healing the body inside, above, down, inside, and out. So these people really were talking about innate intelligence, how to create a thriving lifestyle. So I knew I was at home.
Mhm.
I knew that I was where I needed to be as a young chiropractor, and I graduated at the age of 25 and developed some highly successful practices and practiced for 22, almost 23 years in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And
Mhm.
then life took me on another path. So that's just how it works. We like to think we're in control of our lives, but in all reality, it's anything but linear.
Wow, because I sometimes think about the like the health sector, and I think, there's some things that are focused on sickness and other things are focused on wellness. I really made that distinction when I was at this technology fair last year, because some people are just, it's like the maintenance of sickness, and then other people just want to focus on that wellness, which is kind of a different, and that's what I'm picking up from what you're telling me about the chiropractor, about healing from inside out and trying to help people thrive rather than manage diseases.
Correct. Correct. And so, when you think about the training of a chiropractor and those that study medicine, within the American Medical Association, there's the training for the MDs and the DOs. And then when it comes to the industry of chiropractic, we've got the American Chiropractic Association. Our core foundation is the same with the training, but when they're studying pharmacology and drugs, we're studying the philosophy of how the body can heal itself.
Mm.
So, the wellness paradigm that I come from is that we can literally heal our body from the inside out. And at that time, the lens from a chiropractic standpoint is the lens is remove any interference that's carrying the communication from the brain out to the body, and the body can heal itself. And so
Mhm.
that was one lens, and that was the foundation of my professional training, but it opened up the avenue for so much more.
Are you still doing chiropractic now? Or you just
I
focus?
do, I do. Very limited hours.
Mhm.
I have just half-time practice, I should say 3 half days out of the week. I get my hands on patients. But
Mhm.
what is different now that I am back in a brick and mortar facility is that I can no longer just say I'm doing hands-on chiropractic. I can no longer say that I'm not moving energy. And
Hmm.
so, as a medical intuitive and through the skills of my psychometry, I now know that when I deliver an adjustment, there's so much more happening above and beyond just turning on the central nervous system.
That's so interesting. You've mentioned that twice now, medical intuitive. What is that exactly?
Well, I am a trained medical intuitive. I graduated from the Academy of Intuition Medicine from Sausalito, California. And so I spent several years, I got a master's degree. I spent a little over 2 years learning how to tap into my senses, learning how to receive information. Now, quite honestly, Venus, I've been receiving intuitive information since I was a young girl.
Hmm.
And then I conditioned myself to desensitize my information. Then I went to chiropractic school. It kind of came back online. And so then when I went to the Academy of Intuition Medicine, then it was full blown. It allowed me to expand into a state in which I could then receive information. It's one of those things that I had the innate ability, but it was nice to have the formal training behind it so I could better understand the information I was receiving. So I now receive information as a medical intuitive through my psychometry, which essentially is the palms of your hands, being able to receive information by things that you feel or you touch or that you hold. So somebody who has a high level of psychometry might be able to hold a pen, for example, and tell you the history of the person that owned this pen. I don't
Mm.
have that skill. But what I have the skill is to use my hand to sense information clairsentiently.
Mhm.
Clairsentience is just being able to feel energy. I feel the energy through my palms and through my fingertips. And I've learned to detect over the years what those sensations mean in another person's physical body.
So what is your process like? Do you have to put your hands on someone to receive the energy? What is it like?
No, not necessarily. I love this question because the energy is not bound by time nor space. So
Hmm.
the bulk of my clients are international clients. And
Wow.
so what ends up happening is that I put myself in an expanded state prior to connecting with somebody via Zoom or in person. And so what does that mean? I tap into my meditation practice. I've been an active meditator for goodness, probably 17 years now. So I go inward in order to expand my field outward. And when I say expand, essentially I'm elevating my levels of consciousness to be able to receive this information above and beyond the five traditional senses. And so then when I connect with a person one on one, I simply get to find out what is up for them now. It could be a physical issue, it could be a conditioned response that they're looking to overcome, it could be trying to get rid of a trauma response, or it could be a limiting belief system that they're carrying.
So it can
And
be
then I
anything from
tap
emotional to physical, the whole range of things.
the whole range. Yeah. And so then for the first time in my life, right? For the first time, I'm truly holding space for the integrative person or the spirit that resides within the human home. So I look at the physical, I look at the mental, I look at the emotional, the chemical, the energetic, the spiritual, the emotional. All of this, our human body houses these things. And so when I hold space for them, I literally will expand into a state. And then my first job, Venus, is to set a frequency. And the frequency essentially is just a channel for the two of us to be able to connect into so that we're entrained, that there's an entrapment that's happening. And so then in this entrainment, I will then open up the lens for reading and a healing. And I'll ask the person who's receiving, would you like me to lift the veil for a reading and a healing? And at that time, the person can say, yeah, I'm comfortable, or no, I'm not. And so then if they say yes, then I ask the person to sign in 3 times with the intention of calling their spirit forth. And then I sit back, I lean away, far away from my analytical portion of my brain, and I reside within that meditation sanctuary. And then my spirit greets the other person's spirit, and their spirit guides the healing journey. So I follow wherever their spirit goes. I sense and I say the information that I feel, that I see, and that I connect with. And then those messages are for the person who's receiving the healing. Doesn't make any intellectual sense to me, Venus.
Well, it's always good. You don't have less responsibility than if you're just kind of repeating what you're seeing, and then it's not really trying to intellectualize it. It's
Yeah.
easier.
Sometimes I hear myself say things, I'm like, where did that come from? And then the other
But it
person was
makes
like,
sense.
oh, that makes
Okay.
total sense, right?
So do the people who come to you actually already have this openness towards these types of modalities? Because that's not it's not usual to speak about these things to everyone, you know. There's people who are quite closed off to it.
That's true. It's not
Mm.
mainstream. Energy
Mm.
medicine, I hope in my lifetime will become more mainstream because it is the future of medicine.
Mhm.
And consequently, there are people that find me and listen to me on my own podcast, and then they get a flavor as to what energy medicine is, or they've had an opportunity to connect with me, and I get an opportunity to explain how I can be of service. But you're right, it requires a tremendous amount of education. But at the end of the day, Venus, it requires a tremendous amount of trust from the person who's receiving the healing.
Mhm.
And I think that, somebody who is questionable about the approach, I think they should be able to connect with the practitioner and ask as many questions as they want because it's normal. It's normal to have questions.
Mhm.
And then they get to trust their own intuition and their own guidance as to whether or not, I'm the right practitioner or if somebody else would be the right practitioner.
So what is energy healing in a nutshell? Because we hear that term
Mm.
more and more now with these different platforms that are devoted to wellness. It's something we hear of more and more. I'd say when I think of energy healing, I think of Reiki, but I'm sure it goes beyond that.
Yeah, I believe that any modality that addresses the electromagnetic frequency that runs within us and surrounds us is considered to be energy medicine.
Mhm.
Okay. We can direct energy into areas within the body that are not receiving the circuitry, or that they are less than active, or dim or dark or congested. And we can open up those spaces within the physical body so that they receive more electromagnetic current, and so that their vitality and their health and their well-being comes online.
So any tools that you use for this, like to detect energy, or is it just like your hands and you're feeling it and your intuition?
It's my intuition.
Uh-huh.
And it's funny that you should ask this, Vina, because 2 weeks ago I was at what was called a Zenergy conference, and it
Mhm.
was in Denver. And what it was essentially various different tools that you could use as a practitioner to read the biofield of the human body.
Mhm.
And they were AI generated tools. And I thought it was fascinating. I mean, it kind of blew my mind, right? And then I was like, yeah, but that takes away the human one-to-one, spirit-to-spirit engagement. It takes away from the intuition, the information that's so priceless for the person receiving the healing.
Mhm.
So there are more and more tools coming onto the market, but at this time, Venus, I choose not to use them.
Mhm. I love using a pendulum. What do you think about pendulums?
I think they're great. I
Mhm.
think they're great. I think it's a wonderful tool if you're questioning your intuition. If you're, looking for a strong yes and you see the pendulum go swing from right to left, or you're looking for a strong no and it goes in a circular foundation, whatever allows you to step into the knowing of what is right, always to the highest good of the person receiving the reading.
Mhm. Started to notice it more in my body, like there's this the whole body reaction to things. And sometimes there's no logic behind it, but it's just the body, like it just feels yes or no. It's like when you see a certain name on your phone, like, oh, do I want to answer? No, yes, no. Yeah. You can do that with the calibration. And also with guests on my podcast, sometimes I just I have I receive lots of people who lots of inquiries to come on this podcast, and I just kind of think, oh, I don't want this message on my platform. There's all this. I can't really explain it with logic, but it just it's
It's a
become this
knowing.
one. Yeah, yeah.
It's a direct knowing.
Mm,
And then the process then becomes you get to trust what your body or your somatic intelligence is telling you,
mm,
because your body is so incredibly smart.
mm,
So incredibly smart. And if half of us were just to slow down and listen, like to those little subtle and minute messages that the human body, our bodies are telling us, then our wisdom would only increase and increase.
mhm. Do you have any tips for people to get into this mode, to get more intuitive and just really trust themselves more?
Yeah, my first tool, I think that everybody should be meditating. I really do. I think the world would be a better place to live in if people were just to take, I don't care if it's 10 or 15 minutes out of your busy day to turn your outward reflection, turn it inward.
Mhm,
Turn it inward to silence, to kind of to allow the brain and the physical body to slow down and meet and greet the frequency of the earth. I think that that is one of the greatest healing opportunities that we're all gifted with. The earth energy is the most readily available energy that we have available as spirits living within the human home. And most people don't slow down long enough to be able to connect with it. And all Mother Earth wants to do is to love and to nurture and to hold space energetically and to be compassionate and to provide nutrients for you. That's all she wants to do. And once you can connect into that state, it then slows down the neurology of the body so that you can receive more enhanced information. That's the first thing. And
mm,
then the second thing is that again, I'll say, as spirits living in a human home, if your body, your somatic intelligence is showing you an area of pain or discordance or discomfort, I invite you to gently lean into it. We're so conditioned to lean away from
mm,
those pains, those areas of discomfort, or those emotions that you may perceive are lower frequency, those emotions such as anger or fear or resentment. I mean, it's easier to align with our bliss body. I mean, we all want to live that orgasmic lifestyle where we're in a constant state of bliss. However, we don't want to do a spiritual bypass where we just overshadow the physical body. So when you're in that state of meditation, if your body is communicating to you, whether it be physical, emotional, or some other awareness, my invitation is to gently lean into it just a little bit more.
mm. It's great that you say that because I've just finished writing I've just published a book about it's called Orgasmic Manifestation. It's in Spanish. It's coming out in English in a couple of months. And it's some of those practices are very similar to law of attraction, but law of attraction, what I don't like about it is it's just the feel good, and there's no acknowledgement of the lower emotions. And I think sometimes if you don't acknowledge those things or process them, they're going to come out in a much stronger way in the wrong time, maybe in a way that might be more destructive. What would you say to that? Because all people I know, they're always saying, raise the vibration, raise the frequency, but sometimes you just need to just sit with it.
Yeah. Venus, I loved how you said that, if you ignore something, it's going to persist, right? And then
Mm,
it's got to get out. And so in my world, I always say it comes out sideways when you
mhm,
least expect it, right? When you're not prepared for that stuff to kind of explode out of you. So I'm thankful that you're talking about that. So when I look and this is part of my training as a medical intuitive, I diagnose the various different energy centers known as chakras within the physical body. And for the sake of today's conversation, I'll just talk about the seven lower chakras. And the first three specifically that are located deep within the pelvis, just underneath the belly button and just underneath the ribs, those three energy centers are most intimately connected to the physical body. Okay. They have to do everything with safety and security and trust, connecting into your deepest desires, and then self-worth, self confidence, and control. And so when we are working with these lower vibrations, some of the emotions that come up are fear, the sense of anger or rage. These are lower vibrations. We're talking about the stuff that most people don't even want to look at. But those are part of the whole system. If ignored, there is an untethering that happens, meaning that you're no longer connected into the space of the physical body. The heart space is really beautiful and unique for a couple of different reasons. I call this a transitional energy center because this chakra is most known for, obviously, you think about the heart, people say, oh, it's all about love. Yes, it's about love, but it can be about not only love for others and compassion for others, which we want, but more about receiving that for self-love, self-compassion, self-forgiveness. And from when you can transition through this space from the physical body, then it's simply glorious to tap into the fifth, sixth, and seventh energy center located in the throat, the third eye, or the frontal lobe, or the forehead, and then the top of the head. Because then you can really start to align with your authentic expression, right? Showing up in the world, utilizing the gifts as you conditioned and agreed to do with your original blueprint comes from the space of the throat. And then when it comes into tapping into the awareness of the sixth and the seventh, then we can tap into, again, some of those higher vibrations, that bliss body that we're talking about. So I oftentimes find myself, Venus, talking about embodiment.
To get
If
grounded.
you are, get in, invite your spirit fully into your human home. I mean, show your spirit. Here's my analogy, Venus. If I were to come to your home today, okay, my guess is you might clean up before I show up. You're going to greet me at the door and you're going to say, can I take your coat? Can I take your purse? I'm just going to hang it over here on this hook and let me get you a glass of water. And then you'll show me into your kitchen. We'll get a glass of water. You'll even maybe ask if I want ice or lemon or something like that. You're showing me the details of your home. And soon enough, I'm going to need to use the bathroom. And then you're going to say, hey, use my guest bathroom over here because it's cleaner, opposed to going up to the master bathroom. So the same thing happens if your spirit comes in through your seventh chakra. It's your job as a human to show your spirit your entire physical home. Show the spirit the space between your toes, the space in your knee joints and your hip joints. Give your spirit a tour of your entire human home. And then the goal is to be embodied, physically embodied within your human home, so that you can go through the awareness of inviting all that is in the lower three chakras and transitioning through the space of the heart and expanding and holding space for the upper chakras. And so that way you are, from an integrative standpoint, you're grounded, you're tethered in your human home, you're comfortable being home, and you can embrace all the various different emotions that come with it.
So what would you recommend for an embodiment practice?
Wow, that's a legitimate question. I don't have a direct answer for you because it's such a gradual process. what ends up happening is that people will spend years working on this process, right? A lot of healing, a lot of transformation has to happen as you're going through this journey. And then all of a sudden, when you're not embodied or you're not grounded, that then becomes uncomfortable.
Mm.
You're like, oh, I'm so ungrounded. I can barely think. I can barely walk in a straight line. And then you're like, wow. Wow, okay, time to come back to my human home. Let me take a moment. Let me reground. Let me recenter. Let me spin my chakras. Let's cleanse, charge. Let's come home again. And so you get those little reminders that tell you when you're not embodied, and it comes with time.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Do you think some kind of physical practice like dancing would help, or going barefoot, things like that, doing sport?
Absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely. I'm sorry I talked over
mm,
you, but
mm,
absolutely 100% Venus.
mm,
I love grounding techniques where you're walking barefoot in the ground or laying in
mm.
sand or you even using an earthing mat. Whatever you can do to do it, whatever turns you on. If dancing turns you on, if static dancing turns you on, then make sure you get your weekly dose.
Because the other day I was asked about my morning routine, and my morning routine is what inspired this podcast. Because the podcast, The Orgasmic Lifestyle, it's not just about orgasm, it's about reaching climax in all areas of life. So it's about optimization. But I've had no alarm in the morning for 15 years, which is the best part of my life. I mean, imagine I'm waking up every day naturally, which is, that's a real luxury to be rested and when my body wakes up not to an alarm. And then the first thing I do is meditate. I do a couple of meditations on Insight Timer, and then I get out of bed, and then I put my headphones on and I dance and I make my breakfast. And then I read a book when I'm having my coffee, and then I just don't even get dressed till after lunch or something. It's just a really nice start to the day.
That sounds beautiful. And it works for you. I mean, you're
Yeah.
radiant. So clearly that's what balances and harmonizes you and fills you up with your life force energy so that you can be more full of yourself. And I'm using quotation marks, but you do want to be full of yourself. I
Yeah.
want you to be full of yourself, and I want to be full of myself, just so that we can be the best and the greatest essence of our original essence. That's what it's about.
Definitely. Do you think like, I don't know a lot of energy healers who feel very depleted after doing a session with someone, whatever their modality is. Do you have any tips about that, about how to protect your own energy when you're in session with someone?
Yes, I do. And I'm so glad that you are bringing this up because I had to learn this the hard way.
Hmm.
I wish, and this was the first thing that I was taught at the Academy of Intuition Medicine, and I wish it would have been the first thing that I was taught when I was going through chiropractic school. And just it's called essentially it's a detachment or a neutral separation from all people, places, and things that you've encountered throughout your day. And the technique is very simple. I'll walk you through it, but essentially what you would do, I'll use myself as an example. At the end of my day, I would ground myself into an expanded state and then begin to visualize. And I have pods, okay? Pods of people, pods of places, pods of things that I've dealt with. And these pods are located, they are separate from me and they are located outside of my biofield. So if I'm sitting in my office, then maybe I place these bubbles or these spheres or these pods of people outside of the building. So they're nowhere near me. And so then I'll have one pod of, let's just say, my husband and my immediate family. I'll have another pod of all my patients that I've interacted with that day. And then I'll have another pod of people that I may have ran across at the gym or at Whole Foods or wherever my gas station, those, or maybe I have another bubble for social media in the public news. And so I sit in this expanded state. In Venus, I gently open up my hands so that the palms are facing away from my body. And I set the intention and I visualize an energy stream leaving my hands and arching over to these various different pods, bubbles, spheres of things, people, places, and things. And what ends up happening is that I am gifting back my energy, any energy that we may have shared in our exchange that day. And just like any other gift, you know how if it's your birthday and I show up at your doorstep and I have a beautiful package in my arms, your eyes are going to light up and you're going to say, "For me, really?" And I'm going to say, "Yes, for you." And then you take a moment and you like rip through the packaging and your energy elevates. You get excited because you're receiving a gift. The
Mhm.
same thing happens with these various different spheres or pods of people, places, and things. As I'm sending the energy out through my palms of my hands to them, I see their energy get bigger. And
Mhm.
when the process organically is complete, I then say, "Now it's my time to receive the energy that rightfully belongs to me." And then I take back all of my energy and
Mhm.
I fluff up and I become excited and filled with energy and experience vitality, so that I then I'm no longer depleted. I'm receiving my energy back. And
Mhm.
when that is done, when that process is organically done, then I visualize maybe clipping or
Okay.
tearing
Mhm.
or any of those, severing those energy cords, so that I then come back to myself and I'm neutral, I'm separately identifiable from all those other people. So now I'm back to Mary with my own life force energy. I'm grounded and my kundalini starts to come back online.
Amazing. That's really interesting because I know a lot of people who are in that energy healer space who feel very sensitive about having one session or whatever they do, and then the rest of the day they're really drained. But I find that for me, I get so much energy from people. Like I work from home, but I go to a private members club in the afternoon just for the human contact. And I remember last Friday, I was feeling a bit down, but I spoke to four people. And I was just buzzing after. I just find it fascinating how the energy exchange can be the opposite of depleting and can actually give you so much just from having a simple conversation with someone and how we can
It's true.
uplift each other. So what about the
That
people,
is so
the
very true.
layperson? How can they deal with energy vampires and just people who are
They exist. I'm not
mm,
gonna lie. And there are, there are energy suckers. They just literally suck the life out of you. I have gotten to a point in my life in which I establish boundaries, and if I really feel like that's happening with another person, then I probably choose to end my relationship with them, because that's just not worth um it's not worth it. I
mm,
want to be around people that fill me up, not
mhm.
suck me dry.
Yeah, well, one issue that I've had in my life is that I feel like I'm constantly evolving. I'm always looking to grow, and then sometimes my environment is always shifting, and that can be quite frustrating. I live in Barcelona. I've been here for many, many years. I'm British, but I find that my friendship groups keep on recycling, and I was part of me would like a long-term loyal friendship groups, but if I look really what the ones I was with 10 years ago might have held me back, from from my journey. And sometimes there's an inexplicable part of me. I can't even really explain it, but I just start to kind of get out of sync with people. And there's no logical explanation. It's really hard to deal with that when you just feel like the magnet the wrong side. You just start feeling it's repelling with people, and people find that I've changed, and I'm like, oh, I don't know, I have, but I just don't know how to explain it. Could you understand that, or what could I do in that situation? It's very lonely to grow.
Yeah, I can appreciate that essence of isolation.
Mm,
The journey can be lonely, and you can also surround yourselves that, again, people that perhaps may have a higher frequency of yours, or than you, and then you're always in alignment and striving towards and reaching and connecting with these people. Trust. is the big thing. When you are going through healing transitions, your field changes. And so you will electromagnetically attract a sphere of people who will then match or improve your current vibration. So then you just have to trust in the process and realize that there's nothing wrong. Nobody has to be identified as right or wrong. It's just a transition. And those people that perhaps no longer resonate at that electromagnetic frequency, your paths may cross it in future at a different time after that person does their elevation or their healing journey, but just trust in the process. And uh, as you were mentioning that you understand how there is an exchange, energy exchange with those people that you make contact with day in and day out. I know that you will, in those moments of isolation, you'll be able to connect with those people to fill back up and to continue your healing. I think that the isolation and the loneliness is transient, and this too shall pass.
Oh, cool. Great. There's a big epidemic right now. A couple of questions I'm going to ask all of my guests. What is the book that changed your life?
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I would have to say the author. I can say I can't think of one specific book from Pema Chodron, but she's been so influential in the Buddhist philosophy in holding space for merging the Buddhism into the physical body. She, in her books, constantly brings the philosophy back to its human home. So that's been one of the most influential authors of my life.
What's her name? Sorry.
Pema Chodron.
Okay.
She's an American Buddhist.
Uh,
Goodness, she must be probably 88 or so.
uh,
And she's still very active in her writing and her speaking. And she's one of the most dynamic, energetic people I've ever had the opportunity to experience.
wow. And what about a phrase or affirmation that you live by?
Mm. There was one that was taught to me by one of my energetic teachers, and it was just a simple relax, open, and allow.
I love it.
Relax, open, allow.
Well, I feel I'm very blessed because on this podcast, I feel like I'm having my own personal coaching sessions with amazing experts like yourself. Can you pick up anything from my energy? I'm quite curious.
Well, again, I already said that you are radiant,
Mm.
and your field has increased in the limited time that we've been together. I see more Kundalini frequency online now than I did when we first came to the call, and that shows up in a sense of vibrancy, a vibrancy within the cells. So it's almost like the frequency that we've exchanged is hitting into the nucleus of your cells, into the structure of the DNA. So it feels really transformational. It feels as though your biofield will be able to sustain and hold this frequency.
Amazing. Because just recently, actually, I've been feeling those, up your back, all this energy. I feel that quite a lot in the last few days. I had it a lot in 2017 when I started having my spiritual awakening, but the last few days have been like, is that Kundalini?
That is Kundalini, yes.
It never gets beyond here, though. Is that a problem?
That's an awareness for you. That's an
Okay.
awareness. Yeah. Um, Yes, so I would invite you, this is another bit of information for you. I would invite you to look into research the Alta Major Chakra.
The which one, sorry?
Alta Major Chakra. It's
Okay.
considered to be a minor chakra.
Uh-huh.
In my world, it's a very major chakra, but for you specifically, I expect an email from you once you research the points of the sacred geometry of what you're bumping into.
Okay. Because one of my areas of power and weakness is my sacral. It's really interesting because, I'm very connected with my sexual energy because my book I've just written is all about the sexual energy. And And also reproductive energy. It's always been very positive for me. I've never had any period pain. It's always very, very good. But I have this problem with nocturia ever since I was a child, and my overactive bladder. Sometimes I have OCD. I'm obsessed with trying to empty the bladder at night. And if I'm stressed, it can be up to 10 times. It's just that's really bothering me at the moment, because I think freelance life, the unpredictability of it really adds to that anxiety at night. So I feel like the sacral is my power and my weakness, because also it's related to money, it's related to flow of water and pleasure. So I'm connected with pleasure and all of those things, but this other side is like, what do you think I could do for that?
There's two things that I'd like to sense and say, and that is not only the sacral center, but the root chakra as well. So there is some merging happening within those two energy centers, which is allowing you the space to have excess in those energy centers and simultaneously deficiencies in these energy centers. So there's some distortion between the two that could use some alignment, which would help with the bladder and also in alignment with more prosperity.
Hmm. So what can I do for that? Practically speaking.
Oh, that was the question, wasn't it?
That's
Sorry,
the
I
diagnosis.
went down
What do
another
I do
path
about it?
there. Yeah, so I would, because you're experiencing an excess and deficiency simultaneously, I treat those two conditions differently. So if you're using water, and I know that you already do this is not going to be a new technique for you, but imagine your entire pelvic bowl
Mhm.
literally being a Tibetan singing bowl. So
Mhm.
then it's nestled within the skeletal system of your pelvic bowl. And so that will encompass the first and the second chakra. And imagine that it is filling, if you choose water, a liquid of sorts, and then that allow the water to fill over, to run freely over the bowl and return back down to the earth. And then allow simultaneously as a closed energy circuit, allow the earth energy to enter in the soles of the feet up through the meridians of the legs into the pelvis, and then the whole dumping of the water, and then pulling up the earth, the dumping of the water. So that should help to release the congestion of the excess.
So that would be like a
And to
meditation? Would that be a meditation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a meditation, a visualization, and then to charge it, then I would imagine, invite you to imagine that you're laying on a big boulder or a rock, and that there is a pearlescent golden frequency drying up the pelvis. So that's how I would go about charging it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Great. That's wonderful. So where can people find you?
My website is constantly evolving. And so I would say just come to www.drmarysanders.com for the latest group healing events, for the latest podcast, I know, this is an offer. I have on my website, you can download 3 free meditations. And the first one is all about grounding. But the second one is the detachment exercise that we went through in order to reclaim your own personal energy. So that would probably be my invitation for those listeners. Find me on my website, download those the meditations, and then always, if you have any questions, schedule a discovery call and we'll chat about what's up for you.
Amazing. So that's global. Oh, my audience is US based, but you're serving a global community.
Yes, yes.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to connect with you tonight. And I love your
Likewise.
chakras in the background.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you. I really appreciate all that you're doing.
The book I'm reading now is The Spiritual Entrepreneur. Discover your natural, authentic flow. Align with your true path of abundance and world service. And this is by Steve Nobel. I've been following Steve Nobel for many years, and I've discovered him on the meditation app Insight Timer. What I really liked about his content is that it's very different from other types of meditations. They tend to be more like experiences, quite trippy, even though I've never had a trip in my life, but they are kind of mind bending. And yeah, it takes you into a whole new reality. And even the affirmations are kind of quite far out. And I really enjoy this type of experience for a meditation. It's definitely takes me out of my comfort zone. Also, the topics and content of his meditations are very, very unique indeed. And recently, I became more aware of his life story and a bit more about other things that he is doing as well with the Soul Matrix, which is the name of his website. And he's going to be a future guest. I'm so excited. I mean, I've been listening to his meditations every single morning. There's one about the awakened entrepreneur. So that's kind of, I wanted to read this book before interviewing him. And I'm so glad I did, because this book is something that has really drawn me in. And I was looking at the number of pages, over 300 pages, and I was thinking, am I going to be able to read all of this before the interview? And I was feeling a little bit challenged by that possibility, but in fact it just drew me in from the first page, and I'm actually reading it in the morning and at night as well. So there's just so much wisdom in this book. I think the topic of spiritual entrepreneurship is fascinating. I think often in the world of spirituality, money can be seen as something bad, something that you only get through exploiting others. I think there are so many abundance blocks, or if you have a spiritual or healing gift, that you shouldn't be charging money for it, because somehow that makes it a bad thing, which I don't think that's true at all. I think it's important to stay grounded to some degree when you are a spiritual entrepreneur, because that can be very challenging. People I know who are very spiritual, they tend to be kind of in the clouds and but there needs to be some element of grounding when it comes to the ins and outs of creating a business and a personal brand. And I think there are some fears that definitely ring true for myself in this book. Things about honoring your weirdness, which I can definitely identify with. And also about visibility. I think that's quite a scary thing. I know for myself, I've been online for 15 years now, so I've become very, I'm not really afraid of being seen too much. Actually, I'm afraid of not being seen more than anything. But I still have this element of shyness in me, which comes to short form content. I still feel like I haven't connected with my audience as much as I would like to. I'm still kind of hiding behind a screen, so to speak, and not really connecting with followers. I'm not really aware of the impact that I'm having on people's lives. And I do get glimpses of the results of my impact from time to time. And I do find it very encouraging. But at the same time, I'm quite shy, really. So I don't feel like I'm completely out there. So I need to start making a bit more short form content. But going back to the book, there are many tools in here that make me inspired to actually continue my growth. I do consider myself to be a spiritual entrepreneur, and I had my spiritual awakening in 2017, and that has really influenced my content, because before then, and even still now to some degree, I'm very much about promoting pleasure, or promoting the idea of prioritizing pleasure, especially among women. That's been the core of my work for many, many years. But now adding a spiritual component to it, everything changes. I'm really seeing how sexuality can be a pain point for so many people. There's so many people who have trauma, who have shame, and also this is the topic that kind of moves the world. So it's a good idea to get things out there and speak about these things. But as there is so much shame, I think it's difficult to have these open conversations. And also applying spirituality to sexuality is something I'm super interested in, because I think the most interesting expressions of sexuality is when they go beyond the physical, when they transcend the physical, and you are making love to someone's soul. And that's the kind of sexuality that I'm personally very interested in. Just a little sidetrack here. The other day I received a comment on my YouTube channel. Let me actually read it. Let me just get it up, because it was just So interesting. It was on one of my, let me see. I'm gone. Sorry, I'm just clicking on my computer here. I wrote, it was actually on a video called I Can't Feel Anything During Sex, and I was answering one of my followers' questions. And then some lovely woman says, see, the thing is that porn makes having sex seem like the best thing ever, and that it feels so good and you need to be doing it. And then when you do it, it's nowhere near what you think it would be. It's very disappointing and frustrating. And I feel that it's even worse for me because I have a low sex drive. I couldn't disagree more with that. I think if you look to porn, and this is all fake, a lot of it is fake anyway. And to me, I find that it really doesn't transmit or convey the true magic of sexuality and the true beauty of sexuality, which the main part is it depends on who you're having sex with. It's not just the act in itself of the physical side, which definitely counts for something. But when you are in this kind of spiritual bubble of souls connecting on an emotional level, then there's a whole new realm of pleasure that can be explored. And I think that is a spiritual experience for sure. And that's the kind of thing that I want to be promoting in my content. So I'm trying to bring these elements into my own spiritual entrepreneurship, but there is always that hurdle of censorship online. So I'm going to be developing my coaching services now that I've shared with you on in the last episode and also in the ads on this one, and also with courses and topics on this podcast, because this podcast is not just about orgasm, it's about reaching climax in all areas of life, but this is my ideal. All the topics that we cover on here are the topics that I consume as a content consumer, and the ones that I am interested in and that I do feel is a true expression of who I am at this moment. So spiritual entrepreneurship is definitely something I am going into. And what I love about this book is that there are so many practical tips about funnels, about money, about pricing that feel aligned with the spiritual identity. It doesn't make you feel like you're going to become a sellout, because I think that's something that happens to some people on their growth journey. They can have all these authentic ideas, even artists, and then they get to a point where they have a big offer and then they have to kind of compromise to some degree on their values. And I don't think that's how it should be. I don't think it has to be that way. And being a spiritual entrepreneur, it's all about embracing the wholeness of who you are and making money from it, and through with a very good mission, having your values very clear and helping others with your spiritual business. So if you are thinking about leaving your job and following a path of healing or something else in the wellness space, this is ideal. It really is written for that person who is maybe at that crossroads in life, looking for a bit of encouragement, a bit of support. And it does make some interesting comparisons with the world of employment. Because I think we've been conditioned to believe that there is some kind of let's say security in having a job and an employment in general, working for someone else. But that's just a perceived security. I think in general, going into the unknown can be very, very scary. I know for me, every day as a freelancer, it's always, there's constantly on the unknown. It's hard sometimes to make plans. I remember for the first few years of my entrepreneurship journey, it was difficult for me to actually buy clothes or go on holiday, things like that. So with time and experience and just self-confidence, you can really start believing in yourself and shining more. And the more you shine, the more you will help others and you will be a successful spiritual entrepreneur. So I cannot recommend this book enough. I'm going to be sad when it's over because I'm really enjoying the way it's written. It's very simple, but full of interesting ideas that are very practical and also incredibly elevated. And there are many exercises in the book as well. And I'm going to be doing them with another friend who is another spiritual entrepreneur. But let me read a little bit from the blurb here to entice you even more. Do you dream of creating a spiritual business or wish to amplify the potential and possibility of an existing one? Do you have a calling or mission to manifest a certain quality of authentic life purpose, a calling for world service through some form of spiritual work? If the answer is yes, I highly recommend this book, The Spiritual Entrepreneur by Steve Nobel. Now it's time to slow things down as we prepare for this episode's guided affirmations meditation. It's probably not a good idea to listen to this while driving or operating machinery. Instead, take a break from whatever you're doing, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and enjoy. I am intuitive. I trust myself. I know the answers are within. I am in harmony with my inner guidance. I am attuned to the signals of my body. I am calm, centered, and ready to receive guidance. I am grateful for my intuition. I am intuitive. I trust myself. I am guided by my inner knowing. I am surrounded by clarity and insight. I am open to the messages from my higher self. I am confident in my ability to discern truth. I am grateful for my intuition. I am intuitive. I trust myself. I am tuned into my inner guidance. I am naturally aligned with my higher self. I am empowered by my intuition. I am open to my intuitive messages. I am grateful for my intuition. I am intuitive. I trust myself. I am open to receiving intuitive insights. I am aligned with my highest truth. I am clear and receptive to my intuition. I am tuned into the whispers of my soul. I am grateful for my intuition. I am intuitive. I trust myself. I am at peace with my inner voice. I am open to seeing the path clearly before me. I am always connected to the wisdom of the universe. I am always connected to the wisdom of the universe. I am always connected to the wisdom of the universe. I am always connected to the wisdom of the universe. I am always connected to the wisdom of the universe. I am always connected to the wisdom of the universe. I am always connected to the wisdom of the universe. I am always connected to the wisdom of the universe. I am always connected to the wisdom of the universe. I am always connected to the wisdom of the universe. I am always connected to the wisdom of the universe. I am always connected to the wisdom of the universe. I am always connected to the wisdom of the universe. I am always connected to the wisdom of the universe. I am always connected to the wisdom of the universe. I am always connected to the wisdom of the universe. I am always connected to the wisdom of the universe. I am always connected to the wisdom of the universe. I am always connected to the wisdom I am aware of subtle messages around me. I am grateful for my intuition. Dear listener, due to popular demand, I am so thrilled to be offering 60-minute Zoom sessions just for you. Imagine an hour talking to me, oh my God, about all of the topics that I am a specialist in. I can help you with sexual wellness consulting. That could involve your sexual wellness business or even your personal life if you need some sex coaching to spice up your life with your partner or even your solo sex life. I can definitely help you with that. I'm also offering self-love mentoring, and I'll be testing out my materials for my forthcoming self-love retreat. And these sessions are getting some excellent feedback. I'm also offering Orgasmic Manifestation, the Sex Magic Guidance, which is the topic of my book, and it's something that I am also very passionate about. I'm having excellent results with. And also Life in Barcelona. If you want to visit Barcelona or live in Barcelona, I am your woman. I can provide you with lots of tips. And last but not least, if you need a personal shopper for your pleasure product purchases, PPPPP, I am your woman. So we can connect and I will show you the best products for your needs. So are you ready to take the next step? If so, secure your spot today by visiting my website, venusohara.org, or you can click on the link in the show notes below. Let's make this hour all about you and your orgasmic journey. To find out more about me and my orgasmic lifestyle, visit venusohara.org or follow me on Instagram at instagram.com/venusohara. Make sure to search for the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast by Venus O'Hara in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks for listening, have an orgasmic week, and make sure every day is a climax.